We are live. Hello, everyone. I am going to check. Last time I went live after the time that we were supposed to go live, and that's when LinkedIn worked. This time, I want to make sure that LinkedIn worked again, and it did. Okay, good. We're live on LinkedIn. We're live on Twitch. We're live on YouTube, and we are live on Twitter/X, or whatever we call it here. Okay, perfect. So today I want to talk about building an Eleventy site, deploying that to AWS, and then we're going to do some really cool things with it. We're going to use Tailwind to help us automatically inject styles so that we don't have to write manual styles. We're going to set that all up with the Ampt CLI in the dev mode, so that's all happening. We're going to see how that works and how that's interactive like that. We're going to use Hono as a backend library, as a backend framework. So we're going to do that to serve up some some dynamic pages alongside the static pages, and then we're going to use it to do a dynamic 404 page, and we're also going to use it to do some snippets that we're going to inject, some HTML snippets that we'll inject into our static pages, and we'll do that using HTMX. So we'll have this sort of progressively enhanced page that we can do, and then we're going to hook it up to CI/CD, and we're going to automatically deploy that when we make some changes and do some cool things like that. So. Okay, so let's jump into this. So if you're unfamiliar with Ampt, just to catch you up, Ampt is a service that lets you write code, just application code. We take that code, we process that code, and we deploy that directly to AWS for you. So essentially, you go from code to fully managed AWS workloads in seconds. We call them productized patterns. The idea behind that is that we take whatever your code is, we find the exact right patterns that you would want to deploy to AWS directly using all those different AWS services. We deploy that for you, we manage that for you, we map your code to it, we handle all of that for you, and you just worry about delivering customer value. So, okay, so let's jump into this. So I'm going to start with an empty directory over here. I'm just in VS Code. This is just a ls-la, so this is just an empty directory that I've got here. So the first thing we want to do before we do anything is we want to create a new Ampt project and create a developer sandbox that we can use with that project. So all we have to do is type Ampt into our CLI. So go ahead and create a new Ampt project. I'll create this in the demo organization for me. Yes, I want to create a new app. And I'm just going to use, let's make this a little bit bigger so we can see. I'm just going to use a blank TypeScript starter app. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And then let's call this Eleventy. Let's name it Eleventy like this. I like the shorthand of Eleventy instead. So we'll call this Eleventy blog. How about that? Do that. All right, so this went ahead and generated a couple of files for us over here. So we have this index file that is empty, the package.json, and then this tsconfig file. Pretty simple. And our package.json file is just going to say the name of the project we're working on, gives us a description, gives us the main entry point here, which is just our index.ts file, gives us a simple start script, and then just tells us the name of our app and the organization that it is in. All right, so we've done nothing except for type in Ampt and select a project to start with. This went ahead and generated an environment in AWS for us, a completely isolated account. We've got our own URL for this, and as well as a dashboard. So if I go to this URL, if I open this up over here, which opened in the wrong browser window. Hold on, let me do that again. So open this here like this. This is just going to say not found. There's nothing in this project yet. We're not exposing anything to the internet, so it's not going to load anything for us. A more useful thing to do would be to go ahead and open up our dashboard here. So this brings us into the Ampt dashboard, and this is going to show us the Jeremy environment, which is, if I go back here, we can see this is my sandbox. So I have the sandbox. I've got my own unique URL. You can see I'm connected to this here. I go into the sandbox. I can see how many invocations there's been, what the average time is, all my schedules and tasks. We'll get into some of that in a minute, as well as other information about the application itself. And I can see that it's deployed here to AWS US East 1. Okay. So we're going to put that aside for now because we're going to start focusing on actually doing the Eleventy stuff first, and then we'll get into how we test it and deploy it and do some of these other things. Okay, so I'm going to clear this out here, and let's just rename some of this stuff because this is just using a starter template. So we'll call this Eleventy blog. I think that's what we called it, right? And then blog demo, sure. We'll just call it blog. Why not? It's not going to hurt. And we'll just change the description to this is our Eleventy block. Okay, save that. All right, so first thing we want to do is install Eleventy. If you're not familiar with Eleventy, by the way, Eleventy is amazing. Big fan. Basically, it's a static site generator. It's got all kinds of really great capabilities for it. It's super fast. I mean, just look at the build times versus Astro and some of these other ones. Very, very fast to do, and it's super flexible. Actually, the Ampt site here, this is built using Eleventy. My personal blog, I just updated to use Eleventy. I use Eleventy to build just about everything. I mean, I use it to build the Off by None site, so I really love Eleventy here. And what they've done lately is they've started. They just launched a new version of this, or they're working on a new version of it. Their 3.0 version, or I think it's their 3.0 version. Very, very cool. This now, the big things here is that this is much more modern in terms of it supporting type module, right? So we can use ESM. It has ESM support built in. So we're going to live on the edge here. We're going to use this version of Eleventy to build our project because it's just we just want to we can support the common module version of it if you want to use 2.0, but this is just this is a little bit more exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this here, just the install for it. So we can do a couple things. We can install it like this and run it like this. It'll just just pass npm through the CLI here, sorry, through the prompt here, or we could install it outside of it, or we can just run install. But I'm going to run this here. So this will install that Canary version of Eleventy. This will just take a second. So it says it's installed. If I go here, I can see that in my package.json, I've got this dependency. Okay, so that's really all we have to do to get Eleventy installed. We could go ahead and just start this from the CLI if we wanted to do that. But what I actually want to do is I want to set this up so that it will run through the Ampt interface here, and we can start it as part of a dev server. So again, we could just, if we wanted to just open this up and we wanted to run, I think you just run 11. Oops. Well, it'll show you over here. If you want to get started, I guess get started is probably the better page to run. So you just do, this has you running npx Eleventy. We don't actually want to do that. We want to run it in a, let me see here. Bear with me as we get this set up correctly, right? So we want to run Eleventy serve here. So let me just copy this over. And actually, I don't have Eleventy installed globally, so this probably wouldn't work. So if I did Eleventy serve, I'd have to run npx Eleventy, I believe. Npx. Will this work? There we go. Okay. So what this did is this basically is grabbing any files that it's finding in this main directory here, and it's generating this site directory right here that then has a README directory and so forth. So this would actually allow us to go ahead and load this here, and of course the URL for it is like README. Oops. /readme/ just /readme, and then that should load a file for me here. Yeah, so this would just load that markdown file that we have. So we don't want to do that though. We want to add some more configuration here just so that it will do what we want it to do. So I'm going to leave that site directory, but I'm going to delete this. I'm going to move that to the trash. And then I'm going to create a new directory over here, and I'm going to call, oh, actually I don't want this to be a directory. I'm going to create a new file, sorry. And this is going to be our .eleventy .js file like this. Okay, so this is our configuration file for Eleventy. You can go over to the docs over here, and you can probably find more about the configuration. So probably, let's see, getting started, quick tips, starter tips, programmatic API. Let me search for it. I want to show everybody where you can get these things. Watch and serve configuration, global configuration. Okay, here we go. So essentially the way that their configuration file works is you just export configuration, this Eleventy config, and then you can do all kinds of things like add global data and all kinds of things like that. So actually this is, I'm lost in this, where's just the basic thing here about configuration. Layouts. Oh, configure your templates, maybe? No, that's... Okay, well, anyways, here's what we want to do. We're going to go over to the config here, and because we are using ESM now, which is very cool because we don't have to worry about we don't have to worry about the we don't have to worry about doing exports with common JS anymore. We have to actually export this a different way. So let me just grab my examples to make this easier for you. Where am I got too many files open. Okay, there we go. Config Eleventy.js. All right, so we want to do this over here. So we're going to export default, and then I just call it config. Usually the convention is to do Eleventy config, but I like to do it this way. And then we want to return our configuration here. And the way this works is they have this directory setting, and this tells us what directories we want to use. So we can put an import and an output directory. So I like to use, you can use source if you want to, but I like to use site as the input, and then we want to use static as the output for us. And actually one thing, yeah, because I didn't create a static directory over here other than this one here. So let me just, oh, it's actually processing this in the background here. That's why I created that for me. So let me delete this for now. Okay. All right, so in here we want to delete this. I had that running while we were making changes. All right, so I've got nothing in my site directory, which is my input directory, and then my output is going to be the static directory, which doesn't exist here now. So if I was to run this like this, this should go ahead and watch. This isn't going to serve anything up because there's nothing in here. So if I wanted to create a new file in here, I can just call this index.html. And then I'll type hello from Eleventy like this. Okay, so then this should generate the static with that there, and then over here I should have my hello from Eleventy. Okay, so basic, we've got it. Basic site setup now. And now what we want to do though is we don't want to have to run this watcher over here. This is just a bunch of extra stuff that we don't want to have to do. We want to actually have that run as part of our as part of the Ampt CLI here, so that we can run this in a dev mode and we can work with multiple things. So I'm going to go into my package.json here, and I'm just going to create a new script that I'm going to call ampt:/dev. And what this does is this will run anytime you run the dev mode. So if you're using Next's local build server, or you're using Astro's build server, or Eleventy's build server, or any of these things, you want to put this in here. You want to trigger that to run in here, because then it will run within the Ampt context as part of the dev mode of the CLI. And it's very cool because you're going to get a local host proxy that you can use if you want to do local host calls. So you don't have to worry about things like cores if you're making API calls and some of that stuff. So what we actually want to run is what we just ran before. We want to run and I just have some of this stuff already sort of set up on another screen, so it's a little bit easier. But essentially we want to run this Eleventy --serve--quiet. Quiet just tells it. I don't know if this works with the latest version, but it used to tell it not to be as noisy when it was watching the files for us. So now I've just created this here, and if I run dev now, this will go ahead and run this dev server for me. You can see that it's actually running this here, and it is watching on localhost 8080. So if I go back over here and I refresh, we see that this is still running. Now if I go into my index file and say ampt like this, save that, then this will go ahead and refresh over there, and I'll see that updated as well. Okay, so let's see what's next on the list of things to do. So we've set this up. This is very basic. The other thing that we can do as well is we can set up a build for this. So if we want to do ampt build like this, we can just go ahead and run Eleventy, and that will actually just build it for us as opposed to serving it. It won't create the server for it, and it won't be watching it. It'll just go ahead and do that for us. So now anytime we want to, if we just type in run build like this, this will do the same thing that the dev script is doing, but we use this because we want this to run when we actually build this and deploy this to one of our permanent stages. Okay, so we got that set up. All right, so the next thing we want to do is let's just show a couple of features of Eleventy here just so we can kind of see some of the things that we can do with it. So one of the things that is really cool about Eleventy is we can use all different types of templating languages. If you notice, by default, this is using Liquid. Liquid's fine, but it doesn't have as much functionality as like Nunjux does, for example. So over here, I believe it is HTML template. Let me look it up. This is all in the documentation, by the way, so you can find this if you look for it. What's it called? HTML template engine. That's what I thought it was. Okay, HTML template engine. It says element. We want it to say engine. Like this. All right, and then we use NJK, which is just the shorthand for Nunjux there. So this way it'll use Nunjux to create this, and then we can do some more stuff with the templates. So sometimes when you change a configuration file, I don't know if this is true in the most recent version of Eleventy, but it was in the past, that it didn't always update or take all the configurations. I think there was just some things cached. So if you ever change a configuration file, just as sort of a best practice, or as just to make sure everything's working correctly, is I like to stop the dev server, and you just type in stop to stop the dev server, by the way, and then you can just type dev to run that again. So that's only when you make changes to the configuration file for Eleventy. Okay, so that should be all set now. So now these should use, we should be able to use all kinds of Nunjux stuff in here, and that would be stuff like doing loops if we wanted to do, for, I don't know, item in items, things like that. This is something that you can do in Nunjux, which is pretty cool. All right, so the other thing that you can do with Eleventy is you can create layouts, or you can create include files, things like that. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to just call this layouts like this, and then in here I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this base.html, and in here then I will do HTML. Let's do doc like this. All right, so we're going to get a document like that, and then I'm going to make sure we have a doc type here, because when you don't have a doc type, things start yelling at you. That didn't work. Oops, there we go, doc type. Okay, so now I have this layout here. This layout won't generate anything, or it did generate a thing here for us, which we don't want it to do. What we actually want this to do is we want this to be the layout folder like this. Save that. And by the way, what's great is that if you do need to delete the static folder, and this is one of the reasons why I like to have this base folder of _site, or whatever it is that you want to call it. I like having this because then that allows us to to regenerate the static folder, and we don't have to put files in the static folder and worry about any of that stuff. It'll just automatically regenerate that for us. And we can do some pass-throughs. I'll show you how we'll do a pass-through in a bit. But essentially, once we generate this layout like this, then if we came back and we save one of these files, it's just going to go ahead. Error writing Eleventy templates. Let's see. No such file. Static index. Okay, hold on. Let's see what we did wrong here. And again, sometimes it's those configuration changes, so let's just check this. Dev, and it's quite possible that I did something wrong, but maybe not. Okay, so here we go. So index is generating correctly, and we're not getting that base file now here. So now it's just with this. All right, so what we can do though is now we can use front matter, and we can specify the layout here. Specify the layout as base. You can do base.html, but you don't need to. It'll just read it based off of the file name. We save this, and then I'm going to try if I can make this work over here. All right. So for some reason it's not working, of course, because that's just the way things tend to be. Index base. Maybe I do have to specify base HTML. This is live coding for you, everybody. I'm excited. I'm sure if Zach was watching, he'd probably know exactly what I was doing wrong. Let's see. What did I do? So I got my, double check my configuration file here. Underscore layouts, right? And I've got this called underscore layouts. And layouts, input. Well, let me just try this, see if this helps at all. Export default function. Okay, and that should all be working. Okay, all right. I don't know, maybe I had these things set up wrong or something. It's working now. All right, I think just putting in the base paths or making sure that it was pulling it from the main directory works. So now it's saying hello from Eleventy and Ampt as my index file, but my base file here is not actually being pulled in, it looks like. Let me see, view page source. Okay, so yeah, so it's not being pulled in. All right, so we're getting closer. So in index, oh, I know what did I do? Did I overwrite? Oh, maybe am I in the right place? Okay, let's try this one more time. I think I was overwriting the file. Layout, base. Let's see if this works now. Okay, so this isn't loading anything in there because I'm not actually showing anything. So I am loading my base template, but no body information is being put in there. And that's because in the base, we have to tell it that it can load content here. Like that. We do this, refresh, and now we get hello. And then in here, for example, if we wanted to do something like this, oops. And we'll say this is a test. We can save that. And then we'll get this as a test and hello from Eleventy and Ampt. Okay, got this set up. All right, finally. All right, so the next thing we want to do is let's add some styles to this so that we have a little bit more, so that this isn't just straight HTML. So I like to use Tailwind. And so if we go to tailwindcss.com, we can see how to get started here. So we'll go to docs and we'll go to installation. So you can install just regular Tailwind and that'll do all the things that you want it to do. And then it gives you the option to use something like post CSS if you're using some sort of a build process. We're going to be using a build process anyways, because when we do the build and then when we run this in dev mode, we want to be able to refresh these styles. So I'm going to go ahead and install the post CSS way and show you a couple things that we need to do there. So first of all, again, we can just go into our CLI here. So again, we can pass this stuff straight through using the Ampt CLI, or we can do it outside of it. So for this, for example, I'll install it here. And then if we go into our package.json, we should see that we've got auto prefixer, post CSS, and Tailwind CSS installed. So we've got that taken care of. And then the other thing that we want to do is actually, I think, so we installed Eleventy as a okay, I'm just going to move this because we don't need this as a dependency like this. We can actually just make this a developer dependency. So we'll do that. Okay, and somebody is printing here, so hopefully there's not too much background noise. Okay, so we'll do this. So now we've installed auto prefixer, post CSS, and Tailwind CSS. And then it says the next thing we want to do is we want to run in a init file here for this. We can't run npx through this, so we can just open another window. We'll run npx like this. So we'll go ahead and generate this Tailwind config file here. Okay, so we've got this Tailwind config file set up, and then it says the next step we want to do is create a post CSS config CSS. So we're just going to copy that. We'll come over here and we will create a new file that we will call post css.config. config.js. I think I named that right, post css config.js, and we will paste this in here, and I'll go ahead and save that. And then it says go into our tailwind config.js file, and we want to add some source information here. So I'm going to copy this, go over to our tailwind config here, and in our content, we'll paste this in, and of course it wants to be in quotes, which is fine, and this. Okay, so we don't have a source directory though. We're actually going to be pulling this from the underscore site directory like this. We'll say HTML and JS for now. That's fine. So we'll save that. And then it wants us to create a CSS file called main.css with this information in it here. We can call this anything we want to, but again, as I mentioned, I like to have Eleventy and the build step generate everything to put into the static folder. So rather than just putting this into a static folder, we want to have this. We want to have this dynamic. So I'm going to create a new folder within site, which it did not create within site for some reason. So let me go back here. New folder. There we go. We'll call this CSS, and we'll create a new file called main.css, and we'll paste this in and save it there. Okay, so we've got that done. All right, now it's saying just run your build process, and this is assuming that your build process will pick up all these other things that it is supposed to run. So we need to set that up though. So we're not using like Webpack or something like that. We don't need to do that. We just want this to actually run the process for us. So this isn't documented here, but essentially what we want to do is we want to run post CSS in the CLI mode. We want to run that as part of our npm script. So what we can do is we can install post CSS, the CLI, as a dependency and as a development dependency. So we're just going to do install post CSS-CLI as a dev dependency like this, and we should see that that gets picked up in our package.json. So now we have this as well. Okay, so in order to actually run post CSS, the way that this works is we're going to go ahead and create a new script here, and we're going to call this dev. This is just so we can do something a little bit later that will that allow us to run multiple scripts in parallel. So we'll call this dev CSS, and then we will do post CSS. I think we need to, just need to run post CSS, and then we're going to grab this from the site directory and from CSS. And we called it main.css, and then we want to output this with the -o flag. We want to output this to static/css/ we'll call it styles.css like this. Okay, so what we have now here is an npm script that we can run that does this post CSS and spits this out this way. What we want, though, is in this development mode, we actually want this to run as a, we want it to watch these files for us and run anytime we change something, so we can just go ahead and add the -- watch flag like that. Okay, so if we now go back to our page here, nothing has changed. We're not running anything. So let's first do this. Let's go ahead and run this, this script here. So we're going to do npm run dev : CSS. Now this is going to fail, and the reason why it's failing is because it's using a .js file, and it's using but it's being interpreted as a common JS. So all we need to do over here is just take this file and just rename it CJS like this, and then we should be able to run this script. And this will run just fine. So this is giving us warning saying that it's not picking up any styles, so no styles are being created. That's because there are no styles to be, we haven't put any styles in our index or in our layouts file. So one of the things that we can do, though, and check is that, in fact, the styles.css is being created. These are all the base styles that that Tailwind creates for us, so there's no custom styles here. These are just the base of what they're doing. And what we want to do is we want to go into our layout base file here, and we want to make sure that we import those styles into our HTML. So if we do a link here to CSS, and then we do /CSS/styles and save this. So now we have two things running. We have one watcher over here that's looking for the CSS changes, and then we have another file over here that's generating our output. So if we come back to this, we can see that we are now applying that the base Tailwind styles to this document. That's why we've lost any formatting on the H1 tag. So now that we've done that, though, this is what's really cool. We can go in here and just type in class, and we can start adding styles to this. So let's start by saying text, let's say 3XL for the size, and we can say text, let's say green 500, and we can say font bold like this. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tailwind. It is very, very cool. I love this inline style or doing these inline styles this way. Some people love, doing it different ways. I mean, when you start using reusable components, this makes a lot of sense because you have control over those styles. I get it, maybe some colors and things like that you might want to change at a higher level, but you can do a lot of custom things with it as well. Anyways, we see now that that style has been picked up. It's been re-rendered here. Looks great. I mean, if you want to say looks great. So we can apply some other classes. Let's go ahead and do a class of just a padding of 3 like this. And let's add a little bit of padding to the bottom of this. We'll do 3 as well. All right, so here we go. So now we've got this nice fancy page right here. Now the other thing that we can do is we're just doing content right now, and one thing I'll show you too is if you were to come in here and we were to say, I don't know, let's do, I'll just say strong, just to, oops. Okay, so do this. If I save this here, when we, oh, this is one, okay, so it's not, okay, sometimes it doesn't process, so maybe it can handle, oh, let me try this. Class, text, red, 500, like this. And Eleventy, save that. Refresh. Okay, so sometimes it does when the content, and maybe it's because they're HTML pages, I don't know. Sometimes if the content doesn't come through right, you can use this safe flag, but I don't know, maybe it's something they changed. Things change so fast in front-end development, who knows? Okay, so what we've done now is we've got it running, but in order to make this run, we basically have to run it in 2 separate processes, which is not what we want to do. So we want to make this a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this, and I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to install a package that is called npm run all. So if we look at npm run all like this, this is just a script that allows us to run multiple scripts in parallel. Let's see, I'll show you the P here. Give you an example. So, right, so you can do run P and then like have it run a lint and a build script for you. You can also do this cool thing where you do watch : star or whatever. So let's go back into our package.json file here, and we'll add, I'm going to take this script like this, oops, and I'm going to create a new script called dev Eleventy like this, and this is going to run, no, it's already got it there for us. So that's going to run that, and then what we have to do, by the way, is we do need to install npm run all as a developer dependency. Npm, did that work? Install npm run all -d. Why did that not work? Okay, I'm not sure why that's not installing. Well, oh yeah, there we go. It successfully installed that. Okay, so I'm not. Oh, I know why, because I had this. Don't make changes to your package.json while you're trying to run installs, or while you're using this CLI to do it separately. Okay, so hold on. Well, I got to redo this now because that's my fault. All right, so we're going to change this to dev Eleventy like this. Okay, so now in our ampt.dev, so we could do this. Yes, that's one way to do it, or we can just do run-p and then dev : star like this. All right, so this, if we stop, because we were running the dev server, now when we run dev here, this should run both of those processes for us. So if we look at this, this is now running the CSS process and the Eleventy process, so both of those are running for us in the background. And if we go back over to this document here and refresh, we see that this is running. And let's go make a change. So come over here and we'll say hello from, let's see, oops, span class. And then we'll do font bold like this, and type in Ampt here, save that. All right, and then we'll see that we get all of that formatting for us, and it's automatically refreshing. Okay, it's taken a while, but we've gotten here. We've got our CLI all set up here. Our development mode is all set up. We've got our Eleventy project running and building in the background. We got Tailwind. We're looking pretty good. Okay, so let's do some more cool stuff. So all right, let's actually look at this now on the on our developer sandbox. So far, we've just been looking locally, right? That's nothing, that's pretty easy to do no matter where you are. But part of the reason why we're running this through the Ampt CLI here is because we are actually getting a URL. And if we go to this URL now, then this will go ahead and load the static site for us here. It's just a static site. These pages are loading, super fast. In development mode, they're not edge cached. When we deploy it to a production environment, it will be edge cached as well. So this is, straightforward, pretty simple. Very exciting page here, but this is running from our, from the developer sandbox. And if we change anything on here, so if we say hi from Ampt, this doesn't have the auto reload that it would have in the local environment. Our local version of this automatically reloads hi. Our remote version doesn't. We hit refresh though, and we'll get that instantaneously. So again, the syncs happen very fast, but when we're working in this sort of mode, we want to see it, instantaneously, the refresh. So we just use the local dev server. Okay. But let's actually do something now with like a 404 or something like that. So there's a couple different things we can do. First of all, I want to install Hono here. So I'm going to install, and just make sure. And by the way, if you're not familiar with Hono, Hono.js, go back to the home page here. So Hono is a fast, lightweight web standards JavaScript runtime. It's pretty simple. You install Hono from Hono, and then you just create an app called Hono. Yeah, so it's very similar to like Express or Fastify or any of those. But what's very cool about it is it's web standard, so it is incredibly fast. So anyway, so let's go ahead and get this installed. So we just want to, no, we don't want to do an npm create. I guess we could do npm create, but we don't need to. We'll just do an install. So over here, we'll just do install. Just make sure it is just Hono, right? So install Hono. We don't want to install this as a dev dependency because this is actually something that we need in our runtime. All of these, by the way, if I didn't explain that, is all of these that we're running here, like Eleventy, the prefixer, the run all, the post CSS, all this stuff is pre-processing. This is all stuff that happens at the build stage, so we don't have to worry about having these dependencies available to us during the runtime, during the actual runtime execution. But we do want to have Hono because Hono is going to be important in order for us to actually serve up these at runtime. Okay, so one of the things too just to be aware of is we have a main file which is index.ts. So if we go here, I'm going to close down all this stuff so it gets it out of our way. So here's our index.ts. This is our main route into the backend application. And this is one of the things that's really cool about something like with Ampt is you can run these backends and front ends all together. No matter what you're using, super simple. Okay, so just quickly to find what we're using here, just an example. I guess their homepage had a better example. We just want to import Hono. That's an image, so apparently we can't do that. All right, we'll just do it this way. We'll just import Hono from Hono like this. I don't know why it added that extra at the end. And then we just do const Hono new Hono. I'm going to change this to app like this. And then we'll do app.get. And we'll just, Copilot loves its old. And then see, send is not right. It is amazing. Let's just return it as HTML. And save here. And this is saying an overload doesn't exist because we have to return this like that. Okay, so what we've done now is just done a, and of course this slash isn't going to work, so I'm going to just do hello like this. It's not going to work because we've got a static file that is loading on that there. So I've just done this. This is just synced, right? So now if I go to my live page here, I should zoom this in a little bit. And I type in /hello. Now, oops, what did I do? Oh, we have to do app.fire. So this is just when you're using web standards, we need to add a fetch event or an event listener that's listening for fetch events. So we do app.fire there. We refresh over here, and now we get this hello world. And so now this is running in parallel with this, right? So we've got static files that are loading. We've got oops, if I type it in correctly, we've got dynamic files that are loading. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's see. So now that we've got this running and we've got an endpoint for it, what we want to do is let's go ahead and create. Let's start by just creating a dynamic 404 page, for example. So this is an interesting use case. So if we just put star like this, and we'll say. Let's see, 404 page not found like this. And we need to return as well a 404 like this. Then when we go ahead and run this, it's going to say page not found, and anything we go to is going to give us this page not found. And if we look at the network here, we'll see that it's giving us this 404 error as well. But what's cool about this, and of course with Eleventy, if we wanted to in Eleventy here, so let's say we come over and let's create a new file, and we'll call this 404.html like this, and we'll say, let's use the base, oops, layout base, and sometimes these auto fills or auto completes are fun. So 404, this page does not exist. So we can do it this way, and this would give us a 404 page on our local host. If we go back to localhost like this and we try to load something that doesn't exist, actually this won't work yet, because this is generating, if you look at the static, we'll see this is generating in a folder called 404. What we actually want to do is create a permalink to /404.html. I don't think we need the slash, but anyways, so that's there. And then if we were to refresh this, we'll get this 404 page does not exist. So we can do it that way. And again, we get a lot of junk sometimes in the static folder when we do things wrong. So well, not wrong, but basically we get extra stuff there. So we'll recreate that. So we do have this 404 file here. If we wanted to use the static 404 file that we have, we can do that using using the backend using Hono. What we'd have to do here is we would install the @ampt/SDK, and then we'll import HTTP from the Ampt SDK like this. Okay, so bring that in, and then what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to load static assets. So everything is documented here. So if we want to go into documents and do, let's see, HTTP. I'll make this bigger so we can see over here. And then you can read static assets from application code. So you can just go ahead and use http.read static file, and that'll bring it in as a stream. So because we're using TypeScript, it gets a little, I'll show you. So we could go ahead and say, let's call this file stream like this, and then we'll do http.read static file, and we want to get 404.html. Okay, so this is going to take the file stream, and we'll see that this unknown word file, because it's just spelled wrong, that's fine. How about I call it that? So this is returning a readable stream to us. So now if we want to be able to spit out a readable stream and actually stream that back to the, or display that back to the user, then we would import stream from Hono, Hono/stream, I believe it is. Double check. Hono's got a bunch of great utilities here that they don't stick everything together streaming. So Hono/streaming. There we go. Do that. Hono/streaming like this. And then basically what they say is that all you have to do is essentially return a stream with this async stream, and then you can await the output. So let's do that here. So I'm going to get rid of some of this extra stuff here, and we don't need to add anything to the stream. We just need to pipe our file stream to that. This is going to give us an error because it's saying that readable stream undefined is not assigned to readable stream. So what we can do here, we actually have to await this as well, which means we have to make this async. If everyone's familiar with JavaScript, and we're going to wrap this, and then we're just going to readable stream like this. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense what I'm doing here. Essentially, I'm just awaiting this read static file that will pull it from the S3 bucket for us, and then it will assign it, or it'll cast it as a readable stream, and then we're just using the stream here to pipe it back to the browser. So if we were to jump over to browser now, this is going to look a little bit strange. If we refresh this, this is actually just going to spit out the HTML because we're not telling it the type that we want it to be. So we can do that by just doing c dot, let's see, header like this, and content type. We don't need to do this, header like that. Okay, so now we're telling it we want it to be HTML. We refresh this, and now it'll be HTML, but we're getting a 200 back because we are not setting the response. So we just do c.status and set that as 404, and then refresh this over here, and then we'll get this as 404. So it's a little bit complicated to set up, but it's only because we're using the framework in order to do that. Under normal circumstances, if you weren't taking over the framework, if you're using a Node framework, you can just do http.on and then 404 and then specify it that way. And that would give you that 404 file. Okay, so I know we're like running out of time here, and I haven't gotten very far because apparently these things take quite a bit of time to build. Okay, so a couple things here. I want to show, yeah. So let's do this. So let's go back to this here and open my files. Okay, so this is all pretty straightforward in terms of, hopefully pretty straightforward in terms of using Eleventy and so forth. And we had to set up a couple of things to make some of this other stuff work. But once we get this set up, then it should be super fast to add new pages and do all kinds of things like that. But I want to show you some of the cooler things you can do around like progressive enhancements, because that's where the idea of building a static site but then having it do more beyond that is really cool. So if we go back to our local version here, so let's go back to the main page. All right, so let's say that we wanted to load something dynamically from the server through a static page. All right, so obviously we can write whatever we want to deploy or to serve up on an API route or whatever we're doing there, but we want this to be a little bit different. We want this to load after we get sort of that first time to paint or whatever, right? We want that to load as quickly as we can. So what we'll do here is I'm going to use something called HTMX. If you've never heard of HTMX, it is very cool. So it's htmx.org like this, and essentially what this is it just allows you to use hypermedia. So you just write, rather than returning like JSON from the server, you just return HTML or hypermedia, right? So HTML tags, things like that, and that will automatically refresh or automatically swap things out. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. Anyways, here's their basic example. So I'm just going to copy this in and I'm going to paste this. Well, here's what I'll do. I'll go into our layouts file, into our base, and I'm going to paste this just so that I can get the script. And of course, we can do pass-throughs. So if we wanted to, we could download this and have this in a scripts folder and then have that deploy with our application, so we didn't have to do that ourselves. But now that I've got that installed, let's go to the home page here. I'm going to remove this from that. I'll click Save, and I'll go to my index page, and I will do this button here, like this. Okay, and I'm going to click Save, and then I'm going to go back over to this, and now I've got Click Me that's over here. It doesn't look very styled as a button, so let's actually do two things. Let's wrap it in a div so that we can move it down, and then let's add some styles to it. So we'll do class, and we'll do, let's see, BG. Let's make this blue, and blue 500, and we'll do text white. Oops. Text white, and we'll do, let's do PX3, PY1, just adding some padding around it, and we'll make it rounded so that it'll look all fancy like. So refresh this. Okay, so now we've got this Click Me button, and just for good measure, I will add class and do some padding top of, let's say 4. So move the button down a little bit for us. Sometimes, by the way, when you've got these two scripts running in parallel, it'll update the CSS before, or it'll refresh the page before it updates the CSS. And so just run a refresh here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and view page. Inspect this, so we can see the network tab. All right, so now I've done no JavaScript or anything. All I've done is just imported this script for HTMX, and then I've used this hx post to /clicked and to do a swap outer HTML. If I click this now, I'm going to get an error because what it's saying is that localhost 8080/clicked doesn't exist, which makes sense. And it's also saying it's a post. So there's a couple things I could do. I could set up a quick dummy one, but I want to do this for real. So there's something else that we can do before we worry about actually trying to load content. One of the things that we have to realize is that, let's say that we were to go into our index file here, and we were creating a new route. So I'm going to do a app.get. So I'll do this one with the hello again, so that we have this one. All right. So this is just spitting out hello. When I'm on my developer sandbox up here, then when I do hello route, I will get hello world. That will work. But when I'm on my local host here and I do /hello, oops. This is going to give me that 404 page. And the reason is because, again, we're not mapping it to the remote. So we want to be able to use that, though. We want to be able to make remote calls from our local host. And part of the reason we want to do that is because once this is live here, we don't have to worry about cores, right? Like it'll only, we don't have to specify like a different domain. We don't have to worry about which domain we're calling. The other thing we don't want to have to do is we don't want to take this URL, which we can get locally if we want to within our local files. We can pull that down through params, but we don't want to have to worry about, setting up something that says, well, if it's running in my personal sandbox or it's running on a local host, then I want to, change the URLs and do some of that stuff. It just gets a little bit messy. So instead, let's do a couple of different things. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and create another. Let's just show you how this works here. But I can say API, and I'm going to create a new Hono group there. And I'm going to put this route on the API route like this. And then before I do this app.fire, I'm going to do app.use. And I'm going to say on /API. Oh, yeah. That should be right. Why is it? Make sure that I'm doing this correctly. Let's try it again. It's app.route, not app.use. I'm sorry. All right, because I'm adding a route. So I want to do app.route here, like this. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm basically saying that anything I create with API, I want to have it prefixed with /API, and then I'm going to put that on the main route. And the reason why I'm doing that and separating that out is because I don't want to have to type in /API for every single one that I want to do, and I want to have potentially some other routes that might run at the earlier level. And I keep going out of focus. There we go. All right, so now that I've done that, I save this. All right, when I try to run hello world over here, this is going to give me does not exist because we've changed this to be API / like this. We did, right? Try that again. Where did I miss? API.get /hello, API Hono, API route, API / oh. So here's another thing to remember. Order matters, okay? So before I run this catch-all route, I have to make sure that I tack this on. Otherwise, that wouldn't work. That's why it wasn't showing. So I refresh this now. Now I get hello world. And if I type anything else that doesn't match, then I'll get my 404 page. Okay, we're getting there. All right, now the other thing I want to do is I actually want to be able to proxy my calls between these, or proxy my local calls so that I can access that API route from my local host, right? So if I try to do that now, it's not going to do anything. Hello, like this. It's going to give me a 404 page and say that it doesn't exist. So what I want to do is if I stop this here, clear this out, and then actually, and so I'll do Ampt. Oops. I'm just going to start up Ampt again using Ampt dev, same idea. What this does, so sync, connect to my real-time logs, do all that kind of stuff as well. So this will create for me or it should be creating for me. Oh, I'm actually not yeah, I didn't specify it here. But one of the things that it does is it actually is creating a local proxy behind the scenes for me that does proxy it to the URL, or it does proxy to my local host to the remote host. And so the way that I can set this up is if I go to, I'm going to copy this in because again we are running low on time. But basically, you can use, go into my config, as soon as I can find it, Eleventy here. Okay, so I'm going to paste this in. I'll explain what I'm doing here. You can send in a middleware in using this set server options that is available through Eleventy. And then we're going to use this create proxy middleware here. And I'm going to do this install that as a dev dependency because we are going to need that. What did I do? I'll try this again. Oh, it's because it's not. Should probably install what the package is actually called, right? Okay, let's try that again. npm in -d like that. All right, clear. And then in our file here, we need to import. Oh, perfect. It's already there for me. And run. Oops. Run ampt dev. All right. Let's see how this works now. Okay. And now we've got this /API created to localhost 9000. So this localhost 9000, by the way, this is being created in the background for us. So if we were to just load localhost 9000, this is just proxying to the remote server. So if I did API/hello like this, that's giving me the hello world, even though it's showing on this localhost. But the thing about this localhost is this is fully proxying through to whatever is on the dev server. So if I make a change to something here and go back to, say, hello, like this, this isn't going to change here unless I refresh it, right? So if I want that reload capability, I want to be using this. I want to be using this local host on 8080 that is using the Eleventy dev server. It's just, I keep going out of focus here. I'm going to fix that. Anyways, okay, so now we've got this set up, and then here's the really cool thing. Because we've created this proxy on /API, we can now do this hello, and this will actually serve this up for us. So this is why we're going to get really powerful, is because we go back to this, and this click me that we've put over here is going to /clicked. I'm just going to change this to /API/clicked like this. And then we can go into our Hono application here, and we can create a new, or I guess we can just call it this. We'll just change this to a post because this is posting to the API, and we're just going to return back hello world start. So we go ahead and refresh this. We click me. This didn't work because API/clicked doesn't have a post route. It says, let's double check, post to /hello. That should work. Did it just not sync in time? Hold on, let me try it again. Post API/clicked. Well, let's make sure that this is working. API well, that's not going to work this way, right? Because we API. Oh, did I? I didn't change that, did I? Okay. All right. There we go. All right. I'll figure it out. Oops, that's supposed to be clicked, right? There we go. Okay. Nobody's commenting here. He's supposed to be commenting and letting me know. Ah, Russ is there. Thanks, Russ. He got it. He gets it. Okay, hold on. Try this. Post/click. There we go. All right. Come over here. And go back to this. This. Here we go. Refresh. There we go. Now that worked. Okay. So anyways, so what this is doing is this is basically just swapping out that HTML for me behind the scenes, which is, and again, we can do full-on HTML here if we wanted to. If I do class equals, oops, do it this way. This, and I'll do text purple. Now again, I'm going to show you another way to do this in a second. So if I do this and I refresh and then click me, it's not going to show the text purple, and that's because the CSS doesn't exist for it. So what we can do though, which is pretty cool, is go into the Tailwind config, and then we're just going to add ./index.ts here. And so then that way anything we put in index.ts should also generate that for us, and now we'll get the color there. Okay, so maybe that's not super exciting, and I think it's pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with this, but let's just see how we can use it more as a progressive sort of enhancement thing. So one of the things that we can do is with our index page here is we don't have to use, and I can show you this there, here, is in the documentation there are different triggers that we can use for HTMX, and one of those triggers is a load trigger, which means that this will fire when the actual once the page is loaded, right? So as opposed to trying to load it all at once. So if I go in here, I can leave all this stuff the exact same, and I'll just go ahead and add an HX trigger like this, and I'm going to call this load. All right, so then when I come back to my page over here, close that down, make sure I get to my local one. So I refresh this, and then it immediately loads, which is kind of hard to see, so we could actually add a delay in here, and we'll just do a delay of 2 seconds like that. And so now if we were to refresh this page, it would sit there for a second and then say hello world. So why is this cool? Because one of the things we can do is we can use this to do progressive enhancement. So let's say that this was not click me. I'm going to go ahead and change this to div, and this can be a get, by the way. And of course, you can pass in, cookies get passed, all kinds of stuff like that. So these could be authenticated calls. I'm going to say something like loading comments, like this, and then let's actually do let's do a BG of gray. Gray, spell it right, of 400, maybe 300, so it's a little bit lighter. We don't need to worry about that. We can do more padding. So let's do PX10 and PY. Let's do that for now. And then there is something called animate pulse, like this. So if we were to refresh this, then this will go ahead and pulse like it's loading our comments, and then our, whatever our comments are, pop up this way. So we can use that for a whole bunch of different things. And the other cool thing you can do with Eleventy, which is kind of neat, is let's say we had on the base template here, we have this, this is a test or whatever. I'm going to say our blog or something like this. If we wanted to say, okay, let's say I had a span of ID, and this was, I don't know, I'm going to call it count here, and apologies for this not formatting super well for you. So I'm going to just put an X in here for now, and I'll just add a class so that it will be fancy. So let's say BG yellow 400, like this. Okay. So over here we see this our blog X, and I changed the text color. Sorry, it's just bothering me. Text black, like this. Okay. All right. So we've got this little X right there. So in our progressive load, for example, we can actually pass additional information in using what's called an out-of-band swap. So this is more HTMX stuff, but it's all entirely possible to do. So if we were to go back to our index file here, index.ts, and we wanted to add. So actually, before I do this, I'm just going to show you something quickly, because this is something really, really cool you can do with Hono and the way that the runtime works and interprets this stuff. Within Hono, there is a couple of helpers here. One of them is HTML. So you can just bring in this HTML like this, right? And then what you can actually do is, rather than you having to suffer through not being able to format the HTML, you can just use that little HTML helper, and now we just get everything's a little bit cleaner there. If we were to go ahead and run this again, here, refresh this, right? So this will still spit the HTML back to us. So let's say that this was, I'm going to do this though. So these are our comments, like this. Okay, and then the other thing that I want to do though is I want to pass back an out-of-band swap. So I can come down here and I can say span ID equals, we called it count, like this, and I'm going to say 5, just for the heck of it. And then what I want to do is I want to have this as a HX. See if I remember how to do this. Let's see. Oh, I think it's OOB. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Swap OOB. Yeah, so ID alerts. Yeah, okay. So we just want to have this OOB equals true. Come in here. So we say OOB equals true, like this. And then what this will do is this will spit this back, but rather than just show it where the rest of the content is, it'll swap out the this content here. So if I refresh this, loading comments, so now it says these are our blog comments, and oh, now this is updated to 5 because that was the number that we were using. So anyways, pretty sort of straightforward how some of that stuff works, but it is very, very cool and very, very powerful to do some of the progressive enhancement stuff. So I know we are way over time, and I feel really bad because there's a bunch of other things I wanted to sort of show. I think that what I'll just do quickly at the end here, just to show a little bit more functionality and kind of wrap this whole thing up, and we can spend maybe get better at. I'll do some work on trying to go through these things a little bit faster, although there's just a lot to do. So the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we actually have a build script that we can run. So we do want to run Eleventy. That's obviously one of the things we want to do when the project builds itself. The other thing that we want to make sure we do, and I'll just copy this over and explain it quickly, is actually I don't have it in that one. Let me find one other place where I have it here. We want to make sure that we run, so I can just do it this way. So this dev CSS that's doing this watch thing here, we just want to be able to, we want to run this as well when we do the build. We just don't need the watch. So we'll just do Eleventy and we'll run this. And then when we run build like this, this will run the, generate these files for us, as well as it should be doing this. Yeah, so it runs the post CSS translation for us, and it does the Eleventy build. Okay, so now that we've got that build taken care of, once we specify that, then we can actually do a deploy right here. So if I type in deploy prod like this, when actually I don't think sorry, hold on one second. So one of the things that about this version of Eleventy, because it is using the ESM modules, and it's using some more up-to-date things, we need to make sure that we have the right runtime running. So by default, we're running Node 18 as the runtime, and we just released Node 20. So we want to make sure that we specify our runtime as Node 20, and just happened. Node 20. And the other thing we want to do is the build version. So we want to make sure that we're using, for a build runtime, that we're building us with Node 20 as well. So you have the option to control what these are. You can use the other ones. It's perfectly fine. Depending on what you're doing, but if you are using packages that require the latest runtime, then you can do that as well. All right, so now we can go ahead and deploy. And I'm just going to deploy to prod like this, and just do I want to deploy a new thing? Yes, I do. So this is going to go ahead and run the deployment for me, and this takes about it depends. It usually takes about 30 to 60 seconds or so. But so while that's running through that, let me just jump into our project up here. So you see that we're creating a new environment here. And if we go into deployments, so this hasn't started this deployment yet, but it should any second now. So it's waiting for the environment. Once this environment's set up, then it will go ahead and kick off the build and actually run the deployment for us. And that should happen any second now. Just refresh for fun. But again, this creates a completely separate environment in AWS. You get a separate URL. It's all completely isolated and so forth. Here we go. Now we've got our deployment that's deploying now. And that should give us that URL in just a second. Always takes longer when you're on when you're live streaming, of course. Building and deploying, and then this should be live, and we'll have that URL. Okay, so now we've got this URL. We can open this, and now we get a new version of the app that's loading comments, and these are our comments. So this is completely separate from our local version of it here. Okay, and then just the last thing that I'll show you here, just to see how this works, is now we're way over time. I think we're gonna have to cut this one short, but it is possible. You come in here. Go to this. You go to settings. You go to Git, and you go ahead and you find your repository. You connect your Git repository. Find your repository. Actually, I think I have one called Eleventy here, Eleventy website. So you can go ahead and join this up or link this, and then you can do push deploys. You can enable preview builds. You can do a lot of really cool things with that there. But I think we'll leave that for another episode here because we are well over time. But yeah, so we didn't get to everything I wanted to get to today. I think the big things here, though, in terms of where you can do some cool things, is that when we are loading, and maybe just one last thing here. So this page, if I go ahead and inspect and view the network, when I refresh this page, we'll see that we're loading. Oops, let's do record. Why is that not working? Here we go. So we've got 50 milliseconds, 52 milliseconds, 48 milliseconds. It's loading pretty fast. I don't think I have Lighthouse installed on this version of the browser, but so these load really, really quickly. So you get that first contentful paint very, very quickly, and then you can enhance them afterwards. So, anyways, okay. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of an insight in terms of how you can do some of this stuff. I'll put this up as a repo as well later and have it cleaned up a little bit that people can use it to start experimenting. But the cool thing is that it's very fast to build once you get it set up. I know it's more work configuring all of the configuring Eleventy and all these other things and Tailwind and doing that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll do another one where we can show more capabilities post already having that stuff installed, and we don't have to worry about it. But anyways, so hopefully it was interesting to you. And I guess also Russ mentioned when you deploy it took a little bit longer because we changed the runtime. Once the runtime is updated, then the deploys happen a little bit faster. But anyway, so if you have any questions or feedback or thoughts, please let us know. Yeah, so that's how to build an Eleventy site with Ampt and get it deployed to AWS in just a few seconds.